right, welcome back to the Fireside chats we're having. Today we have Chris Tooker, who I'm actually honored to have. Chris really put up with me over the last year in crazy ways. So the building we're sitting in right now, Chris's team came in and helped led the entire running of the moving, the construction, the build out, the construction teams, all the details, all the furniture, all the aspects of building out this place, and truly grateful. And then in meeting Chris, I've also learned a lot from Chris. So Chris has a huge, extensive background. He's built his own amazing company called Trendzitions here in Orange County, California. Chris has also got his executive MBA. He's part of another entrepreneur group called Vistage. And he's had years and years of like being involved in entrepreneurial groups, serving in the kind of the church world and learning his spiritual giftings and talents. Chris has also taken that, and he's also moved in the area of actually impacting other companies by taking what he's learned through his own experiences, his own challenges, and his own gifting the talents that are given to him to help impact other people's lives. So he goes into companies, he helps change the culture, he helps change the customer service, he actually helps change the way people see themselves and helps even discover who they really are and what they can actually accomplish. I've worked with some of his teams and he's developed amazing leaders in his company. I worked closely with one lady, Mary, in your company, who was absolutely phenomenal, and she praises Chris. And you can tell a lot about a person by the fruit in their life. Catch that. And Chris has huge fruit in so many ways in his life. So Chris, thank you for being a part.
Thank you.
Where would you like to start today? I mean, I'm not even sure. There's so much actually for us to cover, and it's kind of exciting because we get together, and when we hung out at your house, or not your house, sorry, your office, Chris has this huge desk, and he's got all these pictures of all these places he's been. He had books covered all over the place and coursework everywhere, and we probably spent literally 2 or 3 hours just talking about like life, coursework,
yep.
The programs he was developing. He had this like triangle with the different things, teaching companies, and we just dove in depth in the graphics and everything. I was so impressed by, and I love the stuff you've done. So
thank you.
I think the first thing is like, Chris, how in the world did you started this company,
yeah.
but what got you so interested in like personal development, and how did you find your, like, I think the one thing that's fascinating is how did you find who you were? Like you were running businesses, you were building stuff, and I know that story, and you were doing stuff, but when you found your connection to your purpose, when you found that, and I'd love to start with that, and then dive into like, you know, some real practical knowledge on what you could teach entrepreneurs,
sure,
and people that are working in a company,
right,
like how they can transform that company, people that are running companies, how they can transform them companies, people that are in churches, how they can transform their churches, or nonprofits, or any organization where there's people, help people find, follow, and finish their course to impact that environment. So how did you find all this, and where did you start, Chris?
Well, I would tell you that I'm more of an accidental entrepreneur initially. When I started Trendzitions in 1986, the mission was to really help executives plan and implement new facilities. But it evolved, and what I realized is the more work I did for companies, the more desire there was to create a culture, and they didn't know how to do that. And so back in the old days, in the 80s and the 90s, you just did the facility and you didn't put much time and energy into that.
Yeah.
And as I matured through my career, I learned that the more intentional you were and the more clarity you had, the easier it was for you to have confidence and certainty about the kinds of decisions. So I brought this wealth of experience from lots of different companies, and I've done mostly small to medium companies, but I did Black & Decker and some large organizations, and everybody had the same common denominator, and that was people. And people wanted to make a difference, and people wanted to enjoy the workplace. And so when I turned about 40,
we spend more time at work than anywhere else.
And it's so,
I mean, literally, like
so
we spend
important.
more time at work and more time with the people we work with than literally anywhere else in our lives almost.
That's right.
Like, it's crazy.
Well, and one of the great dynamics of the marketplace today is people are really conscious and aware of that.
Yeah.
The millennials realize what the sacrifices their parents made and the hard work they did, and some of them didn't get the return on investment. They forfeited family life, and they became less intentional because they were committed to the hours of work rather than the family dynamic and the joy of living. And so we did a project on the East Coast, and one of our clients was struggling, and when we launched the project, we uncovered that the people were lost. And this is one of the things that I've learned in my own personal life. There was no focus on customer service.
Yeah.
And we were able to help intervene and create a 3-day workshop. And we started with the values of what was most important to them. What was the history of the organization? What was the vision they were looking to accomplish?
Out of curiosity, what, if you even remember, like what was some of their values, mission, and vision at that time?
Their values were to honor people, but they weren't acting that out.
Yeah.
But they hadn't committed to it. And so once we did the leadership training and we got the managers involved through these workshops.
Wow.
And everybody had clarity on what the values were and what was important. They wanted to value honesty, but they didn't want to say anything that would upset you. And so this is where
they didn't want to collide.
They didn't want to. They didn't want conflict, and they didn't want to be struggling with
we need them Crucial
risk.
Conversations, a book, right?
Right.
Crucial Conversations.
That's right. And the difficult conversations become easier when it's acceptable for you to be honest, and you value honesty over comfort.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned is that we all say that we're honest until we're facing this dilemma where it puts us at risk. And our fear, we talked about fear the other day, fear can tie us up and hold us back. And it's okay to make mistakes. And once you realize that it's okay to have honest conversations, then it changes the dynamic completely.
Wow.
Hey, Troy, I need to tell you, you're having a problem making a decision and it's driving us crazy.
Yeah.
And you
100%.
laughed and you said, oh, I know, I'm just worried about screwing it up.
Yes.
And I said, hey, it's paint. It won't be screwed up so bad we can't fix it.
And you helped me guide me in that process.
Yeah.
So catch this, guys. I just wanted to share this one point. So one is this, right? So what Chris has shared, one is he's sharing values, mission, vision. Like this is basics 101 of any organization. You've got to nail that first,
That's right.
Number two, I love how you just talked about honesty, right? And people like, well, we think we're honest until we have to have these collision conversations. And this thing is powerful, guys, because this is one of the biggest things that will transform your life if you can learn to collide in love and really say, hey, this is not working. You've got to catch this because you're not going to change anybody's lives. You're not going to even have your life impacted if someone's not willing to collide with you and knock you off the bullshit course you may be on. And that's why Chris is going to companies and literally helping teach people like how to have real collisions and say, hey, what you are doing is not working. I need you to go this way now. Those collisions are so powerful. And there's even like a book that we're even going through here right now, again, for the second time in the last 14 months or a year and a half now, called Crucial Conversations. So that you can learn to collide effectively. Some of the things Chris teaches is how to collide effectively. And he's collided literally with me probably 10 or 15 times.
That's accurate.
In intensity, like on everything from building design to issues with staffing of different projects, to personal issues, to colliding with me as a person on vision, colliding with me personal on other areas of my life. Like Chris, and he keeps colliding and colliding and colliding until you get what he's trying to share. So your mind opens to the possibilities of what else is out there for you. So I've watched you live this. You've demonstrated at an extremely high level. You've learned to collide, but collide in love. And I think it's freaking amazing. So
well, there's a scripture that says, you're to speak the truth, but you're to speak it in love. And most people realize that you can speak the truth, but they don't necessarily know how to speak it in love. And so one of the things that I learned in my maturing over my career is that if we don't recognize that we're all flawed, we're all very binary. If you make a mistake, you want grace. But if somebody else makes a mistake and hurts you, we offer judgment. Well, which do you want? Well, I want grace. Then why are you offering judgment? So that binary view that we talked about the other day, it really restricts our ability to grow. And when I'm approaching you and I say, hey, look, I realize that you're having an issue, and it's okay for you to be mad. You don't like getting mad because sometimes that blows the top off. And I'm like, no, just tell me what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And the honest conversation doesn't have to be a collision. That's a bit of a rough word for people that are afraid of conflict. And so what I've realized is that there's a couple of different distinctions. And it's okay if we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. And so, I mean, do you know people in your life that are really good people, but they also irritate the heck out of you? We tend to say either they're great people or they're terrible people. How about if we're flawed people?
We're flawed
How
people.
about if we're on a journey?
I love that. Like,
how about if we're on a
it's
journey to
perfect.
get better?
Imperfect people.
And so, when I do the training workshops, I talk first by modeling the biggest failures I've had in customer service execution. And I have a really good heart. How could I screw up that big?
Yeah.
Well, that's when you really show your character. You're committed to making it right. And I think people get caught up in being right, looking good, and staying comfortable.
Yeah.
And if you're committed to those things, then you're not going to get it right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, our goal is to get it right. So when I shifted my mindset, when I was 40 and said, hey, I think I can help you. And I don't have all the answers, but together we can figure it out.
From your life, from let's say 20 to 40, what did that look like? Who were you then? And at what point did you discover this, I want to use the word almost soul's purpose, or this calling, or this true gifting and talent you discovered, and how you discovered that launched you in this whole new direction and even opened your life in massive ways. So.
Well, I spent a early part of my career in construction, and then I started this business at age 25. And so it was all about serving the needs of the executives and the employees and creating an experience when they go through the transition. When I turned 40, I had a friend, and friends that speak into your life, you had a gentleman speak, and he talked about the negative thoughts have to be countered with a positive word. Our closest friends can help us do that. Correct. But they can also be the ones that speak the negative words into our life about fear and doubt.
Correct.
So a friend of mine says, Chris, you're trying to fit into everybody else's box. You are 40 years old. Just be you. And these things that you have are spiritual gifts. And I became a Christian at 30, and I'm like, what's a spiritual gift? And if you've ever seen somebody sing without a lesson, and they sing like an angel, they were given that as a gift.
Yeah.
I
was not given that gift.
Me
Chris.
either.
No. If you want to hear me sing, not a good thing.
Not today.
It's pretty bad. But I love it. But I sound terrible. So
and so
definitely not my gift.
I was very fortunate to have somebody speak into my life that said, your gifts for serving don't restrict you in anything that you do. So when I started the second business in 1999, the training company, it was so easy. And a spiritual gift will show up in your life if you're really good at something and your friends tell you you're good at it and you shrug your shoulders and you don't realize it's that hard.
It just comes natural.
That's a strength. That's a
your
gift.
Strength,
And so for me, that was really a journey. Then I started another business a few years later, and I found that the common denominator, this is what you loved at our facility. I brought these businesses together, and the central theme is creating cultural excellence. And each company helps contribute to that. But for me, I found my identity in being a servant leader.
I love that. And the first time I ever heard about servant leadership, I got that from actually John Maxwell, from his books. And actually, the book that actually was given to me, it was by this guy Aaron Mainers, who was like my mentor at the time. Sure. And Aaron gave me this book, and he was like I was over 18, so I was kind of working for him, trying to build this youth church from 18 to 24. And he gave me this book on John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And it was that first time I was actually exposed, what is a servant leader? How does that work? Right. And I was like, oh, this just makes sense. I watched it modeled. My dad was a servant leader. I watched this guy who ran a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant that I was a dishwasher at. He was a servant leader. He was also, he'd yell and scream and chase us around with metal pipes when he got mad at us. But at the same time, he'd also carry and unpack the boxes with us and demonstrate how to, and he'd cook with us and he'd teach us how to chop vegetables. And he was just the servant leaders, some of the best ones out there truly are servant leaders. I've seen some of the biggest named speakers and pastors and leaders in this country in business walking around with a pitcher of water, filling up people's water, saying, oh, let me get that for you, helping carry trays of food for their guests at their events even. Those people have the greatest impact and truly lead at the highest level when they're truly helping lead by serving others around them.
Well, and those are great examples of servant leadership, but I'll tell you, for me, the distinction really starts with the mindset. And, I'm the CEO of my company, so, I'm not going to serve water, I'm not going to get coffee, I'm not going to do those kinds of things. That becomes a bit of a distinction, that they're caught up in the tasking associated with serving other people. But I think servant leadership comes from the heart. Correct. And it really is about being comfortable that you're not just in charge, you're there to serve a greater purpose. You're there to serve the team. And I think for me, there was a few breakthroughs where I had some aha moments. And once you figure out that your title, when you're in the service business, is what? Servant. And so when I started the training company and I asked everybody what business they were in, they would talk about different dynamics. And I finally got one lady out of 1,000 customers to tell me that she was in the service business.
Yes.
And she was the receptionist. And so I said, okay, if you're in the service business, what's your title? The guy says, I'm VP of sales. I'm managing director. No, you're a servant. And when you can get that mind shift at the highest level of leadership, I'm here to serve my clients.
Correct.
I told my kids, I said, I gave up a 40-hour guaranteed paycheck to serve other people, and it goes way past 40 hours.
Correct.
And I'm inspired by that because I'm comfortable in my own skin. And so I think whether I'm helping people plan a vacation in Cabo, and I want them to have an incredible time.
Yeah.
And most people are wanting to sell their agenda. And so I use the glasses as a metaphor. Hey, take these off and look through my world. When we start looking through the views of our client and we recognize their needs and their desires, we can now be part of the solution. So on your project specifically, people were frustrated because we were on and off and left and right because you're a perfectionist. You want to do it absolutely right. You were so passionate and committed to the outcome.
Correct.
So I took that energy and I said, hey guys, he asked us for our help.
Yeah.
Is anybody qualified here to help? And it changed the attitude in the room.
Correct.
I said, then let's serve Troy and his company.
Yes.
And your facility is beautiful, your team is amazing, and you do a great job of serving and leading your team.
Thanks,
and that's not about pouring water.
Yeah.
That's about sowing into their lives, leading them through campaigns of change, because they all want to get better. They want to be part of the outcome, but they don't necessarily want to be part of the process because it's scary. And if they hear you say collision and they're afraid of conflict, I got to go to the restroom. I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. Yes, they've done that thing.
So
that was the best explaining, because this is my new area of growth.
Yeah.
Like learning to collide well in love and address conflict. It's an area that I've really struggled with and still massively struggle with today.
Because you have a heart.
It's just so.
And you don't want to hurt people.
Yeah.
You don't want to hurt people.
So challenging for me.
And so you're hurting people by not being honest.
100%.
And what changes you is when you have kids.
Yeah.
Kids are so honest. And they'll tell you, and they'll call you out on your stuff.
Yeah.
But then as they grow older, they need you to steward them and guide them. And you have to say, hey, I know you're doing a great job, and I love you. But a correction is not rejection. And so you start to learn the distinction on how you can impact people's lives by being honoring of the truth, being kind in your delivery, but standing committed to your view. And it doesn't mean it's the right view. It's just my view, Troy, from the outside.
And you're applying this to companies and kids and every area of your life, this servant leader concept where you're speaking in love and colliding in love. And you're doing it, Chris.
Well, thank you. And it's not it's not a perfectionist thing. It's a journey. And so when you don't do it right, you come back and you do what? What's the first thing you say when you make a mistake?
I'm sorry, I screwed it up, guys.
But I have to tell you, most people don't have the humility or the confidence that it's okay to say I'm sorry because they don't want to be blamed.
I have to say I'm sorry a lot, Chris.
You say it, and then you would
across the place.
You would apologize, and I say, don't say you're sorry.
I'm
you're the customer.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a journey for me. And so I apologize when I don't get it right. I apologize to my kids and to my family and to my friends and my clients. And you know what happens after I apologize? You know what they extend? Grace.
Grace, it's okay.
But why am I afraid to apologize when that's right there?
I don't know, and most people do that. Honestly, if you say you're sorry, people just, the whole energy shifts.
And if you don't acknowledge your mistake, then you're not going to be able to identify it for change.
So out of curiosity, real quick, what book, if you're a parent or if you're running a company or an organization, on these two subjects of colliding in love and servant leadership, I guess, what books come to mind that people should read out of curiosity, apply, or courses to take or things to watch? I'm just curious.
I'll tell you the dynamic that I want to answer that question with.
Go for it.
I've read probably 200 books.
Yeah.
And everything from the Bible to the Purpose-Driven Life, which are great, sources of wisdom.
Yeah.
To Tony Robbins and John Maxwell and so many others, Good to Great, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, all of the Dale Carnegie books. And what I've learned is that when we go through a class, we only retain about 10 or 15%. If we take copious notes, we can double what we actually retain. So now we're up to 20 or 30%. So rereading books and getting things explained to us, and that's what I love about the podcast that you're doing. I've been watching them for weeks now, and I'll tell you, I heard something again for the very first time, and it anchored in me.
That's awesome.
And so I think the purpose of what you're doing here is we're looking to share my scar tissue.
Correct.
To help others grow.
Like specific experiences, like what does that really look like? What is the truth behind the truth? And that's, I think, like again, how did you discover your purpose? What is exactly your teaching? How do you apply it to your company for real? Like, how do we really go deep?
The biggest strategy I used was the CEO groups.
Yeah.
I was in the Vistage CEO group for almost 10 years, and then I was in the Convene Christian CEO group for 10 years. It was like doing a double MBA program.
Yeah.
And every month you had iron sharpening iron. You'd have people that were committed to being truthful, and they weren't always kind. Your financials suck. You don't have control of your business. You don't have a plan. Yeah. Wow, I don't want to go next month. But it made me better.
Yes.
And so to have honest people in our lives, to give them permission, I think is probably the catalyst to making changes in your life. You and I talked about that the other night.
So let's stop here. So catch this. Don't miss this point, everybody. Like, watch this. So first, Vistage and Convene are entrepreneur groups that have a monthly meeting where you spend like 4 to 6 hours diving deep into the members, and they're getting feedback. You're getting a lot of feedback. Direct feedback and saying, dude, your plan sucks. Like I did this with EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. Right. So, and I feel like there's men's groups out there, there's women's groups, there's different organizations that offer this type of thing where there's like coaching groups even for you to get true impact, right? So you really get spotlights shined on you from all directions, from all these people that are there to care about each other and help each other grow.
They're committed to your growth, not your comfort.
Yeah, they're committed to your growth. And I challenge you today, if you're out there listening, you find a group. If you're an entrepreneur, find an entrepreneur group. If you're a mother, find a women's group. Or if you're a dad, join one of the men's group. There's Wake Up Warrior, there's Sterling, there's like all these crazy men's groups and churches they have. Like there's all kinds of groups that will challenge you and ask you the hard questions. Say, hey man, what I'm seeing in my experience with you, here is what I'm hearing you say. And they're mimicking back. You're like, holy crap.
That's not what I said. And they say, but they'll play it back.
Yeah, they'll play it right back to you. And all of a sudden, like, I just had this yesterday at like my men's group, and they were just hitting me question after question and saying, giving me their feedback and their experience. It's like, oh.
See, here's the thing. The word that is missing from our conversation is accountability. And we're all better when we're held accountable. And we all want to be better. But when he holds me accountable and says, dude, you need to get back in shape. You're an athlete. You're not looking like the athlete that you used to be. Ouch. I'm not very happy with him, and I'm not very comfortable with him. But he's speaking a truth because he cares about it. And so that environment, they talk about iron sharpens iron, so as one man sharpens another. They don't talk about the sparks. And when you're committed and you're in this group, you can create your own mastermind group. You can pick a handful of friends and say, hey, I just want to be in community with you. Pastor Rick talks about we're better together. And I think that's what's so stellar about what you and I have got.
And one of the coolest things I love about it, it works everywhere. So what is it? Tolkien, J.R. Tolkien, and who else? The Lord of the Rings authors and the Hobbit author. Oh my God, I'm going to go blank. These different authors, at the time, they wrote these amazing books and these amazing legacies. They were all buddies. They all just get together, hang out, and talk about their books. And so it even works for authors. It works for filmmakers. It works like I just read a story about filmmakers, like where they all judge each other, these other filmmakers at the highest level. God, I was trying to remember the name. I just read this story somewhere. And it was amazing. Like it works in all communities of life. So if you want to really excel in anything, like have these people that are willing to nitpick you and judge and coach you and give you perspectives from all angles.
But you're missing one more point. Sorry for interrupting.
No, go.
You're missing the distinction of empowerment and support.
Oh,
you had friends 100%. You told me about who said, Troy, stop talking about it and let's do these podcasts.
Correct.
That was at dinner. And here we are. Because it took somebody to get you off of your comfort level and said, you can do this and you can kill it. And what are you doing? So the dynamic of a group isn't just for constructive criticism and feedback and holding you accountable and making you uncomfortable. It's to say, I think you're onto something special. I don't think you need to wait. I think you need to jump. Let's do this.
That's good.
And you've done that.
Yeah.
And you did it because you had friends in your life that saw the talent that you brought, the
Correct.
passion that you bring, the energy you bring.
Yeah.
And so when a friend said, hey, you get to be yourself. Everybody in the CEO group has one business. You're an anomaly. You have 3. They don't get you because they're not you. Don't try to be a people pleaser.
Correct.
Just live in your skin, live in your space. And that changed my life. And I got more comfortable every year since then, understanding that I'm wired a certain way. And you're wired a certain way. And my comparison doesn't have to be that regard.
Yeah.
And it really
so
opened
good.
me up to a whole new life.
So if you're watching this, where in your life can you find, now I think we made some key distinctions today. Like one is people that give you feedback, they're willing to collide in love.
Right.
People that are willing to hold you accountable. People that are willing to help like push you off the ledge and say, jump, let's do this.
Encourage you,
give you support. Like
Right.
that's what these groups are designed to do. And then how are you doing that in your life for other people? Because then it will show up in your life. I guarantee that. So that's a key distinction.
That's right.
If you're just seeking it from other people, well, you're going to burn that out super fast. But if you be the one that wants to give it to others and be that support and be that loving and give out of that heart to other people and say, I will be there for you, like people will throw it back to you 10x. I mean, I've just seen that in my own life.
So catch this.
Yeah.
How many of you watching today or seeing this podcast are aware that you like to serve others, that you want to make a difference in people's lives? You feel it, but you don't know what to do with that. When you get around people that will support you and challenge you and encourage you, you're starting to step into the new space that matters. And your guy a week ago, Torian, he said, that he reads voraciously to give. I didn't know that's why I did that. But I read a book and I share it with you. And I read another book or a video and I share it with someone else because I want to help them along the journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, so I like the Dead Sea. Like you've got to be open to give.
Right.
So you learn, you teach, you give. So that's part of the core 4.
Okay.
Embody being balance in business. Part of the core 4 you do every day is you learn something, and then you teach somebody else what you learned, because you will only truly master what you can actually teach, and you only live out what you can teach. So until you've reframed your mind and reprogram your mind and say, I've learned this information, I can teach this information, then you're locking into your mind so you can actually start walking it out, and you'll start applying it in your behaviors. And that's the beauty of teaching. Like, and everybody should be teaching somebody something, what you know. Even if you know one thing more than somebody else, and you teach that, it's going to impact their lives. Instead of talking and complaining about all the crap going wrong in your life and all the issues going on in life, start pouring love and start pouring what you know and things that will help improve someone else's life every day. So.
And I just have one comment on that. We're talking about the kind of passion that you and I have for teaching and serving. Not everybody watching is interested in teaching and serving.
No.
But here's the thing. If you get lost, I got lost in my life many times. You have to be willing to reach out and ask people that have this passion and say, can you help me? I'm feeling lost. I'm lost in my marriage. I'm lost in my identity. I'm lost in my career. And guess what? Everybody gets lost, but not everybody asks for directions. And so if you recognize you're lost, reach out to the people that you think can offer that kind of support to help you get back on track. And don't ask, why did I get lost? Ask, how can I get back on track?
That's great. I love that distinction. I've heard, and I swear to God, I've heard this twice now in the last 24 hours, that one day, don't look for the why, like look for the how do I get back on track right now.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like literally the universe or God or something speaking to me right now to like, Troy, stop looking at the why, just look at the how to get back on track. So keep going.
The good gets better or the bad gets worse in my experience. And it usually, we struggle with that because we're not prepared to make decisions. And one of the things that empowers us is to make decisions. And if we're held back by our fears, then we're not going to be making decisions. And it will continue on the path that it's currently on. And so as I've evolved and matured and grown up in my career, I've found that the better I can educate myself, the more people that I surround myself with. The CEO groups were designed to help me become a better businessman. They actually just helped me become a better man.
Yeah.
And as a result, I got better at business.
Yeah.
And so you tend to hit these ceilings and these plateaus, and you don't know where to go next. And so having this accountability, having this support group, having friends in your life, you don't have to be in a business group or anything, but just having that community and those conversations, I think it opens us up to whole new possibilities. And we start to step into things that feed our spiritual gifts, they nurture our soul, and we start to feel that inspired life. And I think everybody wants to live with passion, and I think everybody wants to make a difference. Sometimes we want to make a difference in our own life first, and that's okay. That's the motivation to get going. And then when you start excelling, people look at you and go, wow, how did you lose all that weight? And I said, I read a book. I got hurt in November, and I haven't been able to exercise since.
Yeah.
And I lost 30 pounds. It was one book. So there's a power in what our experiences are. You know, earlier you were talking with Dr. Delgado, and he had some significant events in his life that motivated him and compelled him to choose a higher level of accomplishment, to solve those problems. What can I do to make a difference? And I think that's powerful. And I think we all, I was talking to one of the cameramen, we love to be inspired, and we love to root for the underdog. You know what we are? We're all underdogs.
It's true. I mean, like, everyone's got their own underdog story, the hero story, the hero's journey. And like, I love how you just went in through like literally all of that just now, like the pain, the pain of doing something, the pain of like having to go through it, the pain, like having to make decisions that your life's not going to improve without decisions. Like, catch these key points, guys. Like after this show's over, rewatch this, rewatch the last couple minutes of what Chris just said on some of these things. Like the fact, like, we're going to have these painful moments that are going to produce these results, and we're going to have a choice what we're going to do with this. Like, and if you're not part of one of these groups, just find friends you can call and get access to the information you need wherever you're stuck in your life. I mean, a lot of this podcast is giving you a ton of information from a ton of variety, massive variety of people that have been in my sphere, in my circle, people that I've learned from and had access to in my life to try to move this whole thing forward.
Right.
It's a complex thing. You've got health over here, you got relationships, you got our own bodies, you've got all these different nuances of different friendships and trying to do
obligations,
life and have fun,
responsibilities,
and
marriage, kids.
It's just complicated.
Right.
And what are we going to do every day to move it forward? So Chris, keep sharing some of the things
Well,
you've done.
I'll tell you the one thing that I did about a year and a half ago. There's a gentleman that I heard speak, Dave Metzler. And,
I love Dave.
And he's a great guy. And I was
we went to
invited,
breakfast with him like a couple months ago just to talk about like how do you keep great relationships running while you're running all these businesses at the same time. Like,
well, and he surrounds himself with great people, and they catch his vision, and he's culturally committed, in my experience with him, to creating these results, and that gets you past the bumps in the road. But I went to an event, and one of the Vistage guys invited me to this breakfast, and there was 35 people. And it was a couple years ago, and he said, does anybody have any questions? And I raised my hand, and I said, you know, I'm really suffering from post-recession disorder. You know, I'm stuck in the damage that I went through. Maybe you've gone through a divorce, maybe you've gone through a failed business. And I said, I don't know how to get out of the funk. And he was just blown away by the question, and he gave me some strategies that he thought might be helpful to me. And then afterwards, 4 or 5 people raised their hand and they said, we have that same issue. And so there was community in the transparency. And I think the hard part is to get comfortable being vulnerable. At some point, you've got to decide you're comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. And if you're going through a failed business, it's part of the character and texture of your life. And it'll make you a better person. My pastor, Rick Warren, says, or it'll make you a bitter person. It's a simple choice, and you decide. So you were talking about the strategy of making the right decision. And if you want to feel victimized and you want to feel that you've been treated a sour deal, I can relate. I don't know why the recession did what it did. It's just not fair. Now what? And so I think it's really recognizing that you have the opportunity to step beyond that with a simple choice. It isn't easy, but it's extremely simple.
Yeah. So what are you doing now, like in culture, in business, and like what is like the next stage? Like you're trying to actually go into this more right now, right? You're actually trying to go into more companies and impact more people with the culture, teaching servant leadership, teaching these courses.
Sure.
What do these courses look like, and how are you truly transforming these organizations and like shifting the customer service, shifting the leaders, shifting the way everyone's working together so that at the end of the day, everyone's like, oh, this is freaking awesome.
Sure.
You know, so we take it from like, and they're like, you know, moving it forward.
The strategy that I use is really permission-based. And when I get the CEO, usually I'm doing their facility and I see that there's a gap in their leadership and there's a gap in their teamwork and there's a gap in accountability or there's a lack of clarity on their values, I say, put me in, coach, I can help. And I think that's probably one of my key attributes to my success is I'm ready to go in. I don't have all the qualifications. I just show up. And I show up 100%. And I love it when people say 150%, but I only got 100. But I know what a full 100 feels like. And I think when I'm talking to the culture in the business environment now, millennials are a great contribution. They're the first generation of employees that didn't have to have anybody tell them how to learn. They could go learn a language, a musical instrument, without anybody helping them because they could go to this thing called the internet. And so they're now more committed than ever to living the lifestyle and having the strategies that give them the balance and the freedoms that they want. And because many of them, you know, saw their parents make these incredible sacrifices, they're not sure they want to make those big sacrifices. They want to live now. They want to be present now. I want to travel now. I don't want to wait 40 years to retire. And so the companies are now experiencing higher than average turnover. I'm doing a facility in Texas and I'm doing another one in Arizona, and I asked the economic development people, tell me about the workplace here. And they give me all the great, you know, responses. I said, well, tell me about the millennials. And they roll their eyes. There's a high turnover there because if you're not giving them an environment and the tools that they need, well, then you're not a very good leader. And they leave until they find what they're looking for. And they're not embarrassed.
Are they finding what they're looking for? Like, that's the challenge.
Well, you look at some of the more
you know what I mean?
well-known companies, the big companies, the Googles, the Amazons.
They're unlimited cash. Like,
they are unlimited cash. But it's not about the money. You did a great facility here, and the culture here isn't about the dollars. It's about your heart for leading, giving, and serving your team. You have a very nice facility. You did a lot of great things. And each step along the way, I'd ask you if this was going to be impacting with your value and your vision. Because remember, we got that from you. And then I could play that back and you go, yes, it matters. Or no, it's not relevant. Or yes, I can do it later. So I'm experiencing in the workplace.
So you're in part of that vision right now.
Yeah.
Part of that vision was doing this.
To a high level of outcome, and I'm so proud of this facility.
But part of the vision was to be able to do this type of stuff.
And you didn't know, you weren't committed to this when we did this part of the business.
Not even the podcast, just the events we're going to hold here for other people or something.
But just think of the more traditional businesses like CPA firms and law firms. I'm doing facilities for CPAs that they don't want to have a CPA office. Well, what is that? It's boring, it's vanilla, it's stale. You know, just because we have pretty chairs in the lunchroom doesn't make it a different culture. And so these kids that still want to work in finance, they come out and they look at one facility where they can be in the finance department of a very contemporary, cool company where there's community and there's collaboration. And if we are talking about wanting to make a contribution, you see that Troy and I compete for the microphone. The millennials that are like that, they want to contribute. And if you don't create an environment where they can impact the business and they know how, I mean, remember, these are the kids that the parents went to them and said, hey, can you fix the TV? Hey, can you set my new iPhone up? Can you do and the kids are used to being involved and being respected by their parents. And so I think that we're seeing a very good dynamic shift in the marketplace. It's going to be a pendulum, and I think it's going to come back a little bit, but it's not just about providing snacks and lunch. It's about providing an environment and a culture where their contribution is welcomed. And it doesn't mean you get to choose and pick their all ideas. That's the immature millennial, where you're not going to do what I say, so I don't want to stay. But I think you're going to see a continued movement in the marketplace.
So if you could share right now, like, what are some key tips, like people that are running companies, running businesses, to apply to their facilities or apply to their workforce or apply to their lives, that they could walk away today, literally, you're going to walk away watching this. What do you want to know from Chris, I guess? Like, what are things that you'd want to know? And Chris, what would you like to share? And then if you want to contact Chris Tooker and check out some of his content and talk to him, he's very accessible and he's very accessible still right now. So Chris, please share away.
Well, I think if I were a CEO and I were watching this, or an executive and a leader in a company, and I needed to have an impact, I would tell you that the executives in the marketplace are used to making all the decisions because they have the grand vision and they have a bigger vision and they have more clarity. That is not collaboration. Everybody thinks they collaborate. You collaborate well when you know you're not using your ideas. And that's the hard part, right? I heard somebody say the other day, our ego is not our amigo, right? And at the executive level, we tend to get caught up in this.
I love that one.
And so for me, when I kick off a facility, I make the senior executive go last in describing his goals and his objectives. And I trademark this approach. And you remember that? And you let your whole team contribute. And then you got up and you go, okay, they nailed it here, they nailed it here. And you get so energetic, but you get inspired by the contribution of others, as do I. Many executives are actually threatened or annoyed or impatient. And when you're negotiating, when you're negotiating a deal, it's not a checker game; it's a chess game. So some of the strongest executives that I work for, they suck at negotiating because they want to get it done now. I told one of the guys here, I want patience now. And we laugh because we know that's not very patient in our approach. So I think the 3 or 4 things that I would tell you is be willing to hear the voices and opinions from others. Invite people that are objective that'll tell you what you need to see. I have blind spots. Would you like me to tell you what they are? I don't know them until you tell me what they are.
Correct. 100%.
And so the power of objectivity is the thing that I value in your approach most. You go to consultants, you get lots of opinions, but ultimately you have to make the decision. That mechanical choice is the power that the executive always has. So bring others in, invite people into the conversation, ask your warehouse manager, ask your office manager, ask your HR manager, what's our turnover being caused by? They may not have been able to hear it the first few times the HR person told them, but now take notes. And I think that's a very important strategy. We tend to talk a lot. I'm a talker. But when we did your project, I had a pen and a paper. And I was taking copious notes because I wanted to make sure I heard what was important to you. And so I would say, invite other people in, invite other people's opinions. Remember, what got you to where you are isn't going to get you where you want to go. And it's an important dynamic that you recognize. Your tremendous success can be your biggest obstacle to staying successful.
And if you can, I don't know if we can get this on camera today, but we're in the facility that Chris helped build, and all of it is to do great things. And I love quote how it all really came together here because you were able to keep guiding all the complexity of conversations and the amalgamy of everybody working on this. The amalgamy actually have created an incredible
designers, architect, feng shui consultants, independent design
hipsters,
teams.
You know what I mean? All the hipsters, everybody that had their own stuff, and it came together and it created a fantastic.
We had a great team.
The best space you could possibly create for this size building.
We had a great team, and you were a great leader because you invited contribution and you provided trust. And I think that's the number one thing, is that we have to trust the community of the people that we work with. Otherwise, they're going to feel like, you don't trust me to make a contribution. I'm going to find somebody else.
You got to pull in the best. I mean, that's even everything we're building here, software teams, everything else. It is getting that. I mean, the full hearing everybody's side of it all, just making sure everyone's super happy and but also allowing people to speak into your life from a lot of consultants, a lot of people. This is complicated. This life is extremely complicated. There's a lot of variables that you have to kind of
and what's the one responsibility you can't abdicate?
The decision.
The decision. And that's what you and I talked about. And when you were talking with Dr. Delgado earlier about the community of a healthcare team, and you have to be the mediator, the facilitator. You've got to talk to the different people, but ultimately, you've got to make the final decision.
What supplement are you going to take? What meal program are you actually going to apply to your life? How are you going to be as a leader where you take I'm going to take these supplements, I'm going to do this product line every freaking day, I'm going to do a veggie drink every single day, I'm going to make sure I get my workout in every day, I'm going to make sure, you know what I mean, all the basics in your life. I do this, and then also same thing with the company, what are you committed to doing? Are you committed to finding the best leadership, getting the best team, making a decision, finally choosing, okay, I do like and not like this other carpet, you know what I mean? The carpet was a big issue for me. It took me a long time, and I had to see a lot of different
We had
things.
to get him into therapy after the carpet issue.
The carpet issue was another thing. Space planning, the space room in the day was actually 2 separate rooms. I mean, it was a lot of work, but the results, if you're committed to the outcome being the best as possible, you will keep grinding through it all. And that's what I do in my own life.
Yes, you
I am
do.
freaking committed to the outcome. I will grind obsessively over things that most people wouldn't
True
to get
story.
to the level of depth of the outcome I want. So, Chris, thank you for being here
Sure.
today and sharing.
My pleasure.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we walk out? How do people find out more about you?
So I have a couple of
What are the
websites.
websites?
So Trendzitions is a company that helps from the real estate to the relocation, and I've been doing that for over 30 years. ChrisTooker.com is the training and coaching company.
Okay.
And then Tooker Vacation Properties, where we reward and inspire peak performances.
Right, okay. Check out Tooker Vacation Properties. Chris may promise that he might loan me his house one day.
We're gonna do a trip. We're gonna do a trip, but I'm gonna plan it so you don't have to make the decisions.
I've never been to Cabo yet, so one day I'm gonna actually finally make it to Cabo just to relax.
That's right.
Right, that's the goal. Okay, so folks, check out Trendzitions.com. That's TRENDZITIONS.com. If you're doing a relocation, if you're about to purchase a property, if you're about to change office, go buy office furniture, redo your facility, anything about your location, anything about your real estate, your business, the way it operates, that's Trendzition. They have an amazing management team that can help facilitate even your relocation, choosing the right place, even hiring the right real estate agent. Trust me, I am using Chris next time to vet the real estate agents. Also, Chris Tooker, if you want training, how to transform your leadership team, how to create the servant leadership in a service organization. We're a service organization. We have to be servant leaders to our clients. And also, if you want to do the rewards or even rent some of the properties that Chris is involved in, check out his other site. The Cabo home is gorgeous and amazing. So, folks, thank you again for watching the Fireside chats we're having. Chris, thanks for being a part of this. I love you, man. Thank you for putting up with me for a year of incredible stress.
It was my pleasure.
No, thanks, man. Appreciate it, folks. Thank you, and go and live your destinies and find your purpose in life and live it out and become the servant leaders and impact people's lives. So thank you very much, folks.